if I could become Muslim, Donald Trump can become Muslim, okay?
70 virgins. That was his first question.
I hated religion.
And you weren't afraid when you heard about all the prayer and all the fasting?
Yeah. Oh, that was the worst. Because I was really, really nasty towards you about your religion and everything. I'm going to become Muslim, but I'm not going to pray 5 times a day. You're building your own product, right?
Inshallah, that's the plan.
Yeah. How's it going? I'm starting interviewing you know.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's going all right. I think we have the idea. The idea is all set.
Yeah.
We need some funding for it. I mean, we have a small network of high net worth individuals we've spoken to. Every single one seems to be willing to support us in what we do. So inshallah, we'll find someone, and then we'll go with it. But it's a big risk.
Yeah, I don't know where I sit with it.
Yeah, we might not even do it.
I was having a lot of conversations yesterday at the CEO dinner.
Yeah.
And the conversation of like raising capital and being VC backed or being angel backed, it's a tricky one. I don't know.
Because you're giving away a bit of control.
I don't mind. Yeah.
You want to keep the control. That's the thing.
You don't necessarily. You want to benefit from their knowledge and their experience, right?
Yeah.
They've got there for a reason, and you want to like lean on them when you can. Yeah. It's more the case of how does the structure then build itself in terms of like what legal entity do you build your company in?
Yeah.
And if you, let's say, do really well and you make lots of money, you can't just pull out that money and buy new things.
No.
You know, you have to pay it out as dividends, or you pay it out as, you know, potentially as a bonus or something. So it's nothing is that straightforward. So as soon as you become VC backed, you're no longer this kind of small entity that can be dynamic. Exactly. Everything has 5 more layers of complication.
Yeah.
So that's, it's lots of things to think about, but inshallah we'll see.
Depends if you want to be successful or not.
Depends how you define success.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's a good answer. In my head, I was just thinking money. But
you were just thinking like the more zeros, the better. Do you know what's crazy? Because you go to LinkedIn now and it's like, I just see 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, and every day this is how I built my 7-figure business. And I'm like, how? How can there be so many 7-figure businesses out there from selling guides or selling coaching?
Yeah.
So you get caught up in it and you're like, well, I want some of that action.
Yeah.
And you have to remind yourself it's probably not true.
It's like my son, he's in 7th grade. He says, Dad, I think I'm going to skip school. You know, I just be a YouTuber or something. What world are you in, man? It's like, he thinks he doesn't have to work.
Yeah.
I mean, this is work.
maybe he's right, you know. Everyone's talking about the future and all the jobs and how they're going to go to like this new generation of AI and whatnot.
These
and
agents.
Like all the factory jobs when the machines came and then everyone had to retrain, and now maybe it's another similar situation where
there's no non-work. Everything is still work. Like whatever you decide to do in life, whether it's YouTube or sports, it's still work.
No, of course, but then you don't need someone to screw the lids on a toothpaste anymore, do you?
Yeah.
So there's no point training in that. Like a similar way, there's no point training and making digital art, really. Because I saw a post where the guy said, I spent my whole years and years training to make really good digital art on like Photoshop and Canva. Yeah. And now people make it in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
He said, I feel like my life is wasted.
No.
It's difficult. You got to be careful.
So, Pontus.
Yeah.
Pontus.
How did you waste your life?
Oh my God.
Because you have 2 really interesting stories. And we're very, very grateful to have you on today. And I guess just for our guests who perhaps don't know who we are and who you are, just a very quick introduction. My name is Adil, one of the co-founders here at Nisba, joined today with
Ahmed, another person.
Yeah.
And
I'm Pontus.
Our very well esteemed guest. A little bit of a brief introduction. So at Nisba, we're really focusing on the education side, trying to help Muslims learn what they need to learn so that they can take control of their finances. For me, it's been a big thing so that you don't empower just one person. That person has enough knowledge to take back to the household and then sort out the household's finances. And I think if we have that kind of mission in mind, inshallah, then the Muslims will be in a much better place. But we're really lucky because there are some people who have actually gone out and made products. And some people have gone out on a journey that is really not natural for them, like yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel so lucky that you're here because, it's genuinely really inspirational what you've done, mashallah. And I think what would be great for the users to see or the viewers to see back home is, what was your journey into Islamic finance? And then what was your journey into Islam? Because you may have guessed by the name, Pontus was not born a Muslim.
Exactly.
So, without further ado, Pontus, would you mind giving us a little bit of a background on yourself?
Yes. My name is Pontus Selander. I'm born in Sweden, in Stockholm. I'm actually raised in the north of Sweden, not where the reindeers are, but almost.
The cold part.
The cold part.
You have like all day and all night, right? Two seasons.
Exactly. Yeah. So the sun doesn't set in the summer, and if you go a bit further north, then the sun doesn't even rise during the winter for 1 month. So that's a polar night, right? So you have Maghrib from
7 a.m.
from morning till afternoon.
It's the worst place in the world to be a Muslim.
Yeah,
because you just die every Ramadan.
Yeah, exactly. Not in the winter time, though.
How do you do it?
Not in the winter time.
Yeah, in the summer. In the winter, it's great.
In the summer, it's tricky. You have at least 21 hours of fasting. So
extra ajr.
Yeah. In the winter, you might have 3 hours of fasting.
We'll try again next year. Yeah.
I think if you live 80 years, you will have 2 easy Ramadans and 2 difficult ones.
Yes.
If you calculate how it's going around the cycle with the moon. Yeah.
Inshallah. So all the way here from Stockholm.
Yes.
Why are you even here this week?
I'm here because I'm going to attend the MTF. And we did a sponsored event yesterday.
Come on, tell them the truth. You're here to come on the podcast.
Yeah, of course. I was coming to that. And to meet you guys, of course.
But so you were born in North Sweden, and then were there people around you who are Muslim? How did you even come across Islam?
No. I did not have. I didn't have any. We didn't have any Muslims. I was brought up in a town with 10,000 people. Okay. So with no Muslims, no nothing. In the middle of Sweden, not even by the coast.
Yes.
I often get this question because I take on students from Swedish schools, high school students in our local mosques, to talk about Islam and answer questions. And I always get the questions: how did you become Muslim? And I really struggle every time because I want to find where in my life it all started. Because I wasn't religious. I didn't come from a religious family. I was very prejudiced.
Okay.
I hated religion. I was like, my grandmother was devoted Christian, but I was like, how can you believe that, but I think it started when I was 17. My father died in cancer. And that was the first time I started thinking about, okay, why are we here? Where are we going? So this is kind of the breaking point where I started to think what's happening after in the next life, or is it a next life?
Yeah.
Is it black, or will we meet again? So, and then it was a long journey because I became Muslim in 2003 and I was 32 years old. So, but on that kind of journey, after my father died, when I had a lot of questions, I wasn't looking for religion. I wasn't looking really for answers. But I was thinking about what's happening. And when I started studying business in university, I came in with the mindset of becoming the world's most rich
good idea
stockbroker. That was, I'm going to do finance.
Yes.
I'm going to be so wealthy. It's ridiculous. And after 2 years, I actually took a break for 1 year, and I went backpacking in Asia.
Okay.
And this is the first time in my life I saw poor people in real, in real time. So
there's no like visible poverty in
no.
Sweden.
Nothing.
Right.
No,
It's
no,
quite
no,
rich,
no.
right, isn't
I
it?
mean, we have the world's most renowned welfare system, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, with free kindergarten and
Yeah, I saw that.
healthcare and everything. So so that was the first time. So I came back from there and finished my university degree in business and administration, and I was thinking I might be working for Save the Children or something, you know. So it was a transformative experience. But then in university, I had a friend, a Muslim friend, a girl actually. So we had a lot of discussions about Islam, and I was very, very negative. Okay, so kind of pushing her down as well. And but that was around 1999. But I left university. She went to the US to study. I went to Stockholm, started my own business. And 4 years after, in 2003, in January, she shows up in my office in Old Town Stockholm from nowhere and says, "Do you want to have coffee?" Yeah, it was 4 years ago, so why not, you know? And there and then, at that coffee shop in Stockholm, something came over me, a shame, you know? And I had, you know, I have to say sorry to you because I was really, really nasty towards you about your religion and everything. And I'm admitting here now that I don't know anything about Islam. So I'm going to borrow a book just to, you know, face my prejudice. And said and done. So I borrowed a few books from a friend of mine that studied religion at university. And I kind of discovered the first thing was I always, because of the Christian mythology, you know, you always think that God is a man, you know, with a beard sitting on a cloud, you know. And when I read about God in Islam, then it's like, wow, this is something that I can, you know, because I don't think God is a man. It is something much bigger than we all can understand. So that kind of got me interested. And also if you look at the 5 pillars, the zakat, give to the poor.
Yeah.
That was very appealing to me because that was what's happening when I was backpacking, right? When I saw poor people, I came back with a kind of a different mindset that money is not everything.
Yeah.
It's actually something else in this world. And there are people living in poverty.
And you weren't afraid when you heard about all the prayer and all the fasting?
Yeah. Oh, that was the worst. That was the worst. I saw actually Islam as just a bunch of rules.
Yeah.
And I had to, but I met a lot of nice Muslims. Especially one of my dearest friends, he studied in Yemen, in Tarim. And I got his number through someone, and I called him up. I had this book. I wrote down the question I had about Islam. And I called him up. Okay. Hello, this is Pontus. Why is it like this? And then he gave me an answer. And sometimes I was like, all right. Most of the times I was like, nah, you know, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I was very, very stubborn.
Yeah.
I don't like that. No. But then it took me 2 weeks. And I was thinking about that question. And I tried to, okay, if I go beyond what I think this is and just look at it from another point of view, I could find some logic, you know. And I started finding more and more logic. And in the end, I think, so she came to my office in January 2003. And after the summer, really, I started feeling that, you know, I've turned on every rock. You know, I asked all the questions, and I still didn't want to become Muslim because,
Wow.
you know, I was like, no, I have a good life. You
Yeah.
know. I was working in a bar downtown. I was having a good life, a lot of fun, and but I was drawn towards it. So then in November it was Ramadan. So 15th of November 2003, I did Shahada. I was like, okay, I give up. This is it. Scary, very scary.
It must be terrifying.
Yeah, man. Because kind of you have one leg in your old life and one leg in the new life. And this is very scary. You know, what's going to happen. I didn't think too much about what people are going to think because I never really care about that, you know, in my life. It's I usually go my own way anyway.
Okay.
And but it's the unknown. You're leaving something, you know.
That you're comfortable with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And you're just giving yourself away.
Yeah, to something so foreign.
Yeah.
It's like it's almost unnatural for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you have any family around at the time?
Yeah, my mother. I mean, my mother. But she's. I think she was probably like me. You know, not very fond of religion.
Yeah.
At all. So. But it's been. I mean, my family has been supportive. I think, especially my cousins and especially the younger generation. I would say, you know, they don't really care. The older generation, maybe, you know.
I think one problem with Islam is that it has quite a bad reputation for people that don't know much about it.
Exactly.
So it's very you have to give them the context behind it before you start.
Yeah.
Before they can start accepting it.
Exactly.
It's really difficult.
Otherwise, they come at you with crazy questions like, what about Aisha? What about like that? I'm like, come on, let's start somewhere else. And then like when we've got a base level, then we could go into these deeper questions.
Yeah, exactly.
I was on a business trip with one of my colleagues at work and he goes, oh, okay. I like speaking about Islam. He goes, okay, you want to speak about Islam? Tell me about the 70 virgins that you... That was his first question. He doesn't know anything else. He knows nothing else about Islam. That was his first question. I was like, oh, no.
You know, it's funny. I do this course and there's a revert brother on there as well.
Yeah.
He's from the south of France. Okay. And he was telling his story about how he reverted.
Yeah.
And he was like, subhanAllah, it's crazy how these things work. Like last summer, I was hanging around all these beautiful girls in bikinis, and now I'm surrounded by men with beards.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I couldn't be happier.
Such a downgrade.
Exactly. But it's, alhamdulillah, it opened my eyes, I think, you know, step by step.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't, but you're never ready Muslim. You're on a journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you do mistakes. You don't, you know, you learn. I was very stubborn in the beginning. I said, no, well, I'm going to become Muslim, but I'm not going to pray 5 times a day. I'm going to pray morning and night.
Yeah.
So I did that for two months.
Okay.
And then after 2 months, all right, Pontus, if you can do 2, maybe you can do 3. So I started doing dhuhr as well. And then I said to myself, what are you doing? You know, if you can do 3, you can do 5. What's the problem? And I started questioning myself, you know, why are you so stubborn, you know? And then, you know, I did my 5 and I redid the ones I missed. So, alhamdulillah, you know, but it's a journey, of course. But I think the first and the best advice I got was that from a brother, a dear friend, another dear friend. I did shahada with him actually. He's called. His name is Abdul Salam. He's also a revert or convert, or call it what you want. But he said, Pontus, remember, Islam is Islam. Muslims are people. Okay? So whatever Muslims do doesn't necessarily belong to Islam.
Yes.
So I always carried that with me, you know, because obviously, we're all human beings.
We're all flawed.
We do mistakes.
Yes.
Where we say something, we do something else. So that's why, yeah.
It's interesting. So many times you said, "Oh, I thought this" or "I thought that," because I have a friend who I talk quite a lot with, and he always says to me, "Oh, I don't think we need to do that," or "I don't think," "Oh, I don't," and it's always a lot of his opinion. And I say, well, to me, it doesn't really matter what I think about a certain topic.
Exactly.
Because I'm told about what I should do in a certain situation.
Exactly.
I'm allowed to think about, or rather, I think about the fundamentals. And if I believe in the fundamentals, the rest is just given to me. And the rest, I accept it.
Exactly.
If I believe in the core message, the rest is just... but I think it takes a while to get to that stage where you finally understand not everything in my head is correct and not everything in my head is true. But it takes a long while.
And I always wanted to know everything.
Yeah.
I wanted proof. But I think, to embrace Islam, you actually surrender yourself, right?
You have to surrender.
Surrender yourself without knowing everything. Because you don't know how good God looks like. You don't know where you're going. We know where we're going, but you don't know how it looks like.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you just have to accept. And that's the hard part.
But that's the test, isn't it, right?
Yeah,
that's what it's called
that
faith.
is the test.
You have to have faith in this thing that you can't
exactly.
ultimately touch or see.
So we have to pray. We not take this for granted, because people leave Islam as well.
They do,
unfortunately. So
obviously you had a history in finance. Even when you were exploring Islam, did you ever think, oh, let me look into what Islam says about finance during that journey? Or was that?
No, that came later, actually. I started finance.
Yeah.
But at the time, when I became Muslim, I was running company in telecommunications.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I wasn't really into, working with finance. I was running this company together with a friend from university, and but in 2005, so 2 years in my Islam, another friend from university wanted to start financial advisory. That's how I got into the finance business. And as a new Muslim, I didn't know anything about Islamic finance.
Yeah.
I know, okay, I can't deal with interest stocks. They're all right,
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. So I co-founded this company with him, and not thinking too much what we were going to do,
Yeah.
And but a few years in, I started slowly questioning, what am I doing? Because we were working with we did mutual funds and all kinds of, tax wrappers and everything, like ISAs, and pensions, whatever you have here as well. But what we put in them was another story, because we worked with structured products. Structured products is a bond and stock options, really.
Yeah.
Which is 100% haram.
Double.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they came around 2005, 2006, 2007, became really popular. And so I think maybe 90% of our income was from those products. And this is where, I started questioning what I was doing, And I got married at the time also in 2008, thinking about family. Are we going to have kids? Am I going to feed my kids with this income? And also struggling because we were making lots of money, with 20 employees. We're a growing business, had 20% stake in the business. And that was a struggle for me also. Again, am I going to leave this that I built up now because of Islam? So I tried to find ways to kind of say that, okay, it's not that bad. I can probably do this, but it felt so wrong.
Right.
So yeah, and in the end, I did my dua. I talked about it yesterday, and something like, "Ya Allah, show me a way out of this haram and into something halal, and make me a tool for other Muslims with what I know." So this dua I did in the fall of 2009, and a couple of months later, a headhunting company called me up and wanted. They were looking for a head of sales and transactions for a wind power company, renewable energy. So I was like, wow. So this is my way out. But it was still, I'm going to cut my paycheck with 80% down, But alhamdulillah, it wasn't really, it was a great opportunity. So alhamdulillah, I took that. I left all my shares. I left everything in this financial company. And so I worked there.
I thought you were going to say you made dua and then the financial crisis happened. And I was going to blame you for the financial crisis for a second there.
Yeah. The funny thing, it's a journey, right?
Yeah.
So my journey into Islamic finance, I bought some books, and when the financial crisis happened, we were in the middle of it. That's when I finally understood why riba is so despicable in Islam, It's like you make war on Allah taking riba. That was kind of where I understood, oh wow, yeah, this is what it's about, At least one of them.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
Okay, so you shut down the finance, or you sold your part of the financial advisory. You're now head of sales for this wind farm energy. And that was kind of your introduction to now sustainable finance, sustainable energy.
Exactly. Because now I'm going back to my backpacking trip, doing charity work, because that's, something I've always been interested in. So now I'm in this green energy company with 100 people, very skilled, and they all want to save the world. And I was the only Muslim. And I was thinking, this must be the most Islamic company I've ever come across, Even the owners, the CEO, we used to sit, I had my own prayer room.
Wow.
And I used to sit with the owners and talk about. He was very into like Buddhism, and he went to silent retreats and stuff. Yeah. And we talked about me praying because I knew I was Muslim and stuff.
He didn't try and encourage you to try ayahuasca or
no. No. So it was a really great experience, actually. So this is what I took with me from that was, if I ever gonna work in finance, I want to do ethical finance, Islamic finance, and ethical business, because I think that's what I see is Islam and Islamic finance as,
It's funny how we go through a journey in life, and obviously now you're explaining it, you can see how you went from, university to business to finance to something ESG, and then in the end you pull them all together.
Yeah.
And like a nice kind of end to the journey.
Yeah.
But also, obviously, it's not the end. There's more to go on. But then after the wind farm company,
yeah,
that's when you started looking at. That's when you moved to Saturna.
Yeah, no, I only been with Saturna for the last year. I've known our vice president Monim Salam for a couple of years now, because I was doing charity work for Muslim Aid Sweden, and he was the chairman of Muslim Aid USA.
Okay.
So he came to Sweden a few times and did seminars on Islamic finance. And that's how we... And at the time, I was actually back in what I call haram finance. Unfortunately, another friend from university called me up in 2021, I think, because I was doing my own consultancy company, helping a few friends with sales and stuff. And he said, Pontus, we're starting an investment company, so I want you to be part of it. And I was actually the one taking him into finance. We hired him in my old finance company before I left.
Yes.
So he started there 3 months before I left the company.
Okay.
And I know I took him in. So I said, I'm leaving, by the way, but we'll hire you. So he stayed in finance. And I went out, and he called me up in 2021 and said, okay, we're starting this investment company. We're going to invest in commodities, stocks. It's not going to be any haram stuff. And I was a bit hesitant. And I thought, okay, at least if it's 80% halal, maybe I can go for it. But after 2 years, again, I was like, no. I can't. It's like Shaitan's whisper, flashing the money for me again, come, I'll give you money, and I took the bait, unfortunately, but then again, I can't do this. So I phoned Monim up at Saturna Capital and said, because I knew they wanted to have a guy in Europe, a representative, because we have offices in the USA and in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. But they didn't have anyone in Europe.
I imagine quite a few people don't know who Saturna are. As large as they are in terms of the money that they manage, do you mind just telling us what they do in really simple terms? What does Saturna do?
Saturna Capital is it's actually a fund manager. It started in the US in 1986. It was actually the story is there was a few Muslims, Dr. Mirza, one of them, and they approached a man named Nick Kaiser. Nick Kaiser, he was an investor, fund manager, and he was known for doing ethical investments. So they asked him if he could manage the fund. They were setting up Amana Trust funds. So he did. So he ran that with a Islamic filter, but also with a ESG filter. That was quite early for ESG, I would say, in 1986.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then he went on to start Saturna Capital, and Amana Trust funds were incorporated. So they've been on the market since 86, so that's 39 years. And we have 4 equity mutual funds and 1 sukuk fund in the US. And we have a global sustainable fund in Malaysia. And here in Europe, since 3 years back, we have an ETF called Saturna Al-Kawthar, which is a global equity ETF. So it's managed by Scott Clymer and Monim Salam, our vice president.
So just for those who don't know, I guess it's always good to kind of explain, how do these funds work? So from a high level, it's individual investors like myself, maybe Ahmed and yourself, putting money into this fund. Yeah. And then an individual, so the names that you've given, they sit on top. They take the investors' money and they go and invest in companies, right?
Exactly.
And what you guys are trying to do that's slightly different to perhaps the Vanguard funds.
Yeah.
Is the first thing is you're filtering for ESG.
First thing we filter is Sharia, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after that, now they passed the Sharia compliance.
Yeah.
threshold. Now you're going to say, actually, we want to take it one step further.
Exactly.
And we want ESG-friendly firms.
Exactly.
Okay.
And ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. So companies that score good on those metrics. And it's almost ironic. And I think back to when you were talking about the wind farm company.
Yeah.
And you thought, oh, this is an Islamic company. And I thought, oh, there aren't many Muslim renewable energy companies. I don't know if that's just because Muslims aren't in that sector. But you would think, given the values that a Muslim would have, that those industries maybe they'd be drawn to. But it's almost like ESG things aren't on the forefront of Muslims' minds, maybe because they're busy fighting other battles in the world, which are more important, so they don't have time to worry about how we're producing our energy right now. But it's interesting that you have a Sharia filter, and then that filter is not enough. You have to put an ESG filter, but in theory, a Sharia filter would already have an ESG filter in it.
Yeah.
But that's not how Sharia filters work.
No.
The Sharia filters are done by a company. They're done by various companies, but one of the big ones is AOFI.
Yeah. Okay.
And they're mainly done on the industry and the financial metrics of the company.
Yeah.
Which does make me think, when you moved into Islamic finance, or when you started getting more familiar with it, was there anything about it that shocked you or surprised you? You thought, okay, this was really good, or this is not as good as I thought it'd be, or was it just as you expected?
Well, I think what you mentioned now with the ESG, I personally, with my background, I would say that I'm surprised that it's not part of the Sharia screening, first of all. I mean, why would you, if you eat excessively food, it can become haram, right?
Yes.
So, and if you, the same thing, if we pollute this world to an extent that we can't live in it anymore, then wouldn't fossil fuels be considered haram along the way? I don't know. I'm not a scholar. I'm not.
No, but it's a really good question to ask, and here's a tough one for you.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea why? Like, it's not kind of part of the default, part of that Sharia filter that we have.
I think the scholars and financial Sharia is evolving, is developing. I mean, 3 years ago, I wanted to invest in crypto. And everywhere I looked, it said haram. Now, I mean, our friend said IFG even done
article, yes, they did.
Yeah. I mean, a Sharia screening of cryptocurrency, and suddenly we can invest in Bitcoin and
why did you
Ethereum.
tell us 10 years ago?
Yeah.
We could have made our money then.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's evolving.
Yeah.
So that's what I see in a couple of years. I mean, I don't know, 5-10 years, it might be part of it. Why not? I see it as a big part of it, because we should, as a Muslim, at least what I think, you should do whatever you can, because we're the Khalifa on this earth, right? Mm. And we have to take care of this earth. We have to take care of other humans. We have to take care of animals, the nature, the climate, everything. So for me, it's,
They should go hand in hand. And it's funny because Islamic finance could have pioneered ESG if it was...
Exactly.
If they started early enough, but they didn't. It's almost like there's a bit of a fear of disrupting an industry which already exists with a new idea. Then this new idea is Islamic finance, and we don't want to rock the boat too much. So we only make small changes.
Yeah.
And the changes so far, I feel like they focused on what we call negative screening, which is if this company is not allowed, then we remove it. We remove that one, and we're left with a list. That's how we find our list. And I think very few players out there are positive screening, where they find companies that are good here and are good there and are good this. And maybe that's the future. Maybe that's the future.
Inshallah.
But do you think there's anything that we can do on like the you know, I'm not saying us, but like people on the lower level, that
Lower
could,
level.
as in not on an institutional level, on like a retail level.
Okay,
Yeah.
level.
It's a better way to
Yeah.
frame it, not peasant and
Yeah.
master. But that like on a retail level we could do to kind of encourage that kind of thing, so that ESG does become a default filter? Or is it a case of having companies like Saturna that hopefully will pioneer the way, and maybe other people will do it? So actually, if you want to remain Sharia compliant, you know, it comes hand in hand with ESG.
I think so. I mean, for example, the clients in the US, the Saturna Capital clients, 50% are non-Muslims.
Oh, wow.
They invest in our funds because of the ESG part
But how do you
and
know that
the ethical
50%?
part.
Because if you're doing it by name,
Yeah, but out of 200,000 clients, if half of them are called John Smith, I don't think 100% of John Smiths are Muslim.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe, Allahu Alam. I hope so. They might become.
that's amazing. So you've actually attracted a big non-Muslim base.
Yeah,
Through marketing or through just your products?
products. I mean, both the return of the products and obviously the strategy of the ESG and the ethical strategy.
I think that's one big education piece, because there's no reason if you invest with Sharia criteria or ESG criteria that you have to accept lower returns. You can get
Exactly.
just as high returns.
Yeah.
The one thing which you may be sacrificing is a little bit of diversification, because you may not be in the tobacco industry, or you may not be in the arms industry, or you may not be in some instances the oil and gas industry. But do you really want to be in those industries anyway?
Exactly.
It's a funny one. It's one that,
And I think since we're value investors, right? Really, the Sharia is value investing, because you have the threshold of 30% debt. And the funny thing is, if you look over 10, 20 years, if you tend to, when the market goes down, if you can make it a little bit better than everyone else, then you're going to be the winner over time. So if you lose less,
Let's soften the blow.
yeah, that's one part of it, because I think Islamic funds are less volatile. Just look at between 2010 and 2020, what happened? Who were the winners on 0% interest? Well, the companies with a lot of debt.
yes.
They were outperforming the markets anywhere in the world. And what happened with COVID? Who were the ones going down most? Nasdaq lost, 80%?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So
Yeah, it makes sense. Companies with more debt on their balance sheet, which would not be Sharia compliant, as soon as the times get tough, and they always do in the economic cycles that we live in the globe, they're the ones that get hit the hardest.
Yeah.
So you could say that there are some arguments towards that companies with a lower amount of debt, which would be deemed Sharia compliant, would be less volatile. So there certainly is an argument there. But I think it's just an aspect that a lot of Muslims need to be educated on more, to realize, I can have the return I want, and I can do it in a Sharia compliant way too.
exactly.
So why not?
And also that brings us into, should you choose an actively managed fund, or should you use an index fund? So it's pros and cons with both. If you have a good fund manager that can give you 1-2% extra every year, then choose the actively managed, of course. But if you can't find that, choose the index. So I think this is kind of what we've been focusing on, because we only have between 35 and 40 companies in our funds. In any of the funds, because we do the Sharia screening, the ESG screening. We start with 5,000 companies, and then we have 2,000 companies left after Sharia screening. And when the ESG is done, we have 1,000 companies left. And then we go to the fundamentals to see, okay, which out of these can we choose from? And then we may be sitting with 300 companies. And out of these 300 companies, we choose 40. And then obviously it's up to the fund managers to cherry pick the right ones, of course. I used to work with in this investment company before Saturna. He was extremely skilled, but he was more of a asset manager, asset locator. But he said always that if we can't find the alpha, which is beating the index, so index is beta. If I can't find the alpha, I'll stick with beta. So if I can't find a good
way to beat the index,
investment manager, fund manager, then I'll stick with the index. But if I can find someone that's over time been doing good, then
that's
go
the
with
one
that.
you're going to go for.
Yeah.
And the active versus passive argument is such a deep argument.
Yeah.
And one that we actually spoke to with yourself and Muneem a few weeks back, and we're going to do some internet magic and just link it here if someone wants to see a bit more information on the active versus passive management thing.
Yeah.
But Saturna, they focus at least on the fund that's offered within Europe, just on the active management side, and it's a lot more active than even the other actively managed funds in the UK, the Sharia compliant ones, and that might be a bit confusing to some people because how come some funds be more active than other funds? But check out that video because we do explain it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll keep this one lighthearted and friendly.
Yeah.
If you want the deep dive.
Thank you. Let Muneem take the details. That's good.
But I'm curious. So, like, over your lifespan now, you've obviously done quite a few different, financial pieces. As an individual, are you investing yourself? Like, do you tend to go for like wide range of portfolios, different asset classes to have diversification, or you fundamentally know I believe I'm going to go actively manage funds and that's all I believe in?
No, I do actually. I have. In Sweden, you're so lucky in the UK. You have a variety of different funds to choose from. In Sweden, lucky for Saturna, we're the only option.
Oh, wow.
In the whole of Scandinavia, actually. So I'm doing seminars in Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, to just educate Muslims. But we also have a dialogue with the banks to bring in more. Because I don't see, even though as I work for Saturna Capital, for the community, we should have more options.
Yeah. But there isn't that many Muslims in Sweden. There is now the new generation.
10% of the population is Muslim.
In the whole of Sweden?
Yeah.
No way.
10%.
That's more than England.
Yeah, but we're only 10 million people.
Yeah, but still.
It's like, it's not even London.
But when did they come?
I think we're one generation behind you guys. So I would say we have the Turks, and Turks came quite early, 60s, 70s, along with the North Africans. And then I think a large chunk of Somalis, Syrians, Palestinians came, from the 80s onwards. Yeah.
Did your views about the migrants change after you became Muslim, or did you always have the same?
No, it changed, definitely. I say if Donald Trump, if I could become Muslim, Donald Trump can become Muslim, okay? Just make dua for him, okay? No, definitely. And I think I hope the view is changing in Sweden, because it's been quite Islamophobic, unfortunately. And, but only 15 years ago, people, the average Muslim was driving a taxi, But now you have young Muslim professionals coming out, lawyers, high-paid jobs, like you have had for one generation here. That's happening now in Sweden. So that's why I think
It's tough.
Islamic finance is coming as well.
Even we're doing this podcast in what's this area? Whitechapel, East London.
Yeah.
Just when you walk through it, and you're thinking, oh, this is not the nicest part of it. It might have nice food in it, or it might have nice food, but you walk through it, it's not like the nicer areas of London. And
I think it is.
But at the same time, it has a very high Muslim population. So
wait, what you're trying to say is the correlation between
there's definitely a correlation between the amount of Muslims in a place
and how nice it is.
Yeah.
The more Muslims, the worse it is.
Yeah. I think that's quite obvious.
No, it is obviously.
I think I understand when people in Sweden and in the UK and in Norway and in Germany, when the migrants come and they don't quite assimilate into society well, that the locals they get annoyed.
Why are these people washing their feet in the sink? What are you doing? It's a restaurant.
But it's even worse when they see me doing it in airports. What's this white guy doing washing his feet?
Because even the Muslims are probably watching you like, what are you doing?
What the hell?
So this is the critical part then really for Sweden and Scandinavia. If they've now got the better paying jobs and the better paying income, they need the wealth management solution.
Exactly.
Otherwise they just get left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do have a lot of messages come in, a lot from Europe saying, oh, these funds aren't available. Like, what's the alternative? And it's tricky.
Yes.
It's really hard. Like, because you don't have the platforms or the options.
Yeah. Exactly. But even here, I did a tour in around UK in January, and I was still surprised because when we asked them, okay, how many of you are invested in the stock market? I mean, out of 100, it might be 10 people.
Yeah.
I was like, what? So it's I think it's a big financial illiteracy among Muslims that needs to be addressed. Because I had a meeting with one of the mosques in Stockholm actually, and they've been sitting with £1 million to build a new mosque, okay, for 10 years in an interest-free bank account. And I was like, what? Okay, they didn't have any alternative.
Yeah.
I mean, Saturna, we've been in Sweden for 2 years, but if they had an alternative, I mean, for 10 years, you would have lost maybe 27% of the value of the money due to inflation. But if you invested those money, would have been double, So,
and regardless if there were options or not, most likely is the management didn't even think about it. Even if there was an option, it probably wasn't even on their mind that I should probably be doing something with this money. And I think that's a big thing. So many countries are behind. I think the country that's always on front is the US.
Yeah.
US has such a high investing
Totally
rate.
different. I mean, we're managing 300 or 400 waqf in the US. Different mosques. Charity organizations, they actually invest from day one in the stock market.
Wow.
They invest in property. They always invest, which is unheard of in Sweden and
here
here
as well.
I think. Yeah. Even though you have the options here.
We always had the conversation where we should go around the masajid and try and do educational pieces for the committee to talk about how to invest your money. But we're like, realistically, it's so hard to convince them because you can't convince one person. You have to educate 200 people for them to be able to make a decision. And realistically, they're not going to take the decision. They're just going to leave it in probably El Rayyan Bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's even in.
If that.
Probably. Yeah. But yeah, there's a long way to go. I think there's a lot of distrust. I don't know why there's distrust, but even people in my family, when I tell them about, oh, why don't you move your money to a Islamic bank?
Yeah.
Instead of a traditional bank. Oh no. Not the Islamic bank. They're the bad ones. So I don't know. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
But we'll get there one day, inshallah.
But what can the youth do today? Is there anything they can do? Can they get involved? If they're a Muslim and they want to grow their wealth, whether it's in Scandinavia or potentially Europe, do they have any options to get started?
Yeah, I mean, I usually say to people when I get the question when I do seminars around, start small, start with, a rule by thumb is 10% of your salary
Okay.
to start investing every month. Okay, you can do it if you don't have any clue about the stock market. Okay, buy a mutual fund or an ETF. You know, a Sharia compliant. It could be Saturna Al-Kawthar, could be Wahed, could be HSBC or whatever choice you have here. But start small. And if you want to do stocks, I mean, you have apps that help you out, Soya and Musafa and all of these.
Yeah.
There's quite a few.
Kestrel, I believe.
Kestrel, yeah, exactly. And start, because I think monthly saving is the easiest way to start. I mean, I started saving for my kids from birth. Exactly from when they were born, I started investing £50 each, you know, and they both have over £10,000 now.
Oh,
I mean, my daughter is 11, my son is turning 14, and they, you know, inshallah in 10 years it'll be double that or even more.
BMW for both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Hajj.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hajj. Think about, we're talking about inflation.
Yeah.
We had a bad inflation the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But the Hajj inflation.
Yes, it's a
Well,
lot.
for us,
ridiculous.
the whole system's completely changed because we used to get like a golden visa. If you're British and you want to go on Hajj, you just go.
Exactly.
But now we got part of the ballot system, and everyone's like, "Oh my god!" Like, I mean, now we're just like the rest of the world. But previously, we had this whole like, you know, it was so easy to go, so people took it for granted. Oh, I'll go when I'm ready. And now it's like, no, you're doing it like the rest of the world.
Exactly.
You enter the ballot, and then you get what you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
and then you have to have the funds for it.
Yeah.
Have you been on Hajj?
Yes, alhamdulillah. 2 times.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, 2016 and the last one before COVID in 2019.
Oh, what a time. Now it's like
Alhamdulillah.
way busier.
Yeah.
It's bigger
It was
Yeah, but it's still.
busy then.
now. Yeah, it's busy. I think it was more risky then because people were dying back then.
I think it was before 2016.
Okay.
I think they rebuilt
Yeah,
everything.
restricted, okay.
Yeah, they learned from the mistakes.
I went to Umrah recently and it was killer. I can't imagine. I think it scared me from going to Hajj. I just feel like.
But you know,
But you said earlier, if there's a rule, you just follow it, right?
Yeah, I'll follow the raw. I'll do the raw, but I just, you know,
sorry.
after I went to Umrah, I'm not like, I don't feel excited to go to Hajj. I feel like, oh, this is something I have to do, and I dread it.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm.
But it's wonderful to be there. I mean, even though the heat and the amount of people, the only thing I could think about was that I was chosen to go there. Because there are people that have millions and they can't make it to Hajj.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
Something happens. You can't make it. And probably 80% of all the Muslims in the world will never ever have the funds to go to Hajj, which is even worse, you know. This is so just being there and feeling that you're actually picked, and it's amazing feeling. So you forget about the the push and the shove.
Yeah.
It's just a humble feeling.
It's interesting that we got onto the topic of Hajj after we got onto the topic of investing, because I remember when I was doing my Islamic finance studies, they said one of the first products in the whole Sharia compliant space was made so that people could save for Hajj.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And it's actually now, considering how expensive Hajj is, it does involve a bit of saving.
Yeah.
So you're probably going to have to invest somewhere along the way to help you get to where you want to go.
Yeah,
definitely.
Or you've got large disposable cash.
Yeah,
or you're part of very few.
Yeah, you get a mega bonus.
Yeah.
No, this is what I tell people. Just start saving for your kids when they're young. Because they might... I mean, what's the cost of going to Hajj this year? I mean, it's
at least like £8,000-9,000.
Yeah,
like
must be.
Basic packages where they move.
And in
your
10 years,
hotels.
it's going to be double or triple that.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, because...
And your salary's not going to be double,
No.
So you got to do something.
I did a calculation. The Hajj inflation is between 10 and 15%.
A year.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well, I always say,
crazy.
whenever I see a restaurant that's really busy and there's a massive queue outside, I think just put up your prices. Get rid of the queue, put up your prices.
Yeah, exactly.
But with Hajj, it's different. There's so many people that want to go to Hajj, but you shouldn't really put up the price to limit the volume of people going there because it's kind of unfair.
Exactly.
I don't think you'd ever run out of demand.
No, you wouldn't. I mean, at some point, the price would be too high. If it was 50k per person, you think you'd get 1 million?
I think it'd still sell out.
Everyone going around in their helicopters.
Yeah.
Don't throw off.
Just private tents.
So, if there was a non-Muslim watching this and you wanted them to understand something about Islamic finance, or it's the way that Muslims approach investing, what would you say to them?
I would say that because what I was thinking when I was in conventional finance is a lot of it's greed, it's a lot of gambling. All of these products that come out is more gambling products than investment products, right? And I would say the whole Sharia is more of what do you say? I can't find the word now in English.
Say it in Sweden, maybe we can guess.
We'll put up the translation.
Yeah. Equality, thank you.
Yeah.
Equality and also fairness, because you have to have a contract. It has to be a contract that both understands, right? And it has to be a tangible asset. It has to be something you can almost touch and feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it that way, it's a fair system rather than, I think a lot of people see the financial world as something dirty, you know. People get fooled, and so I don't know. Maybe that's what I was gonna.
What's annoying is I feel like a lot of people who go into finance go in it to make money because it's an industry where there's lots of money. So even if you take a small percentage, you make a lot of money. But I feel like with Islam's approach to a large part of finance, the lending part especially, there's not supposed to be any profit involved. They're supposed to, if you're gonna lend someone a loan, they call it a qard hasan. Benevolent loan, and you don't charge anything, and if you were to be involved in those transactions, there's almost no way to get paid. Or if you were going to get paid, you might get paid a nominal fee and not a percentage fee, because then it starts to get into interest, and all of a sudden the money aspect of getting paid to go into finance is no longer there, and it almost becomes like, oh, you want to work in finance, that's like the charity sector, and in the charity sector everyone knows no one gets paid anything.
You get paid in points for the next life. And that's much more important than money in this life.
But if your kid said to you, oh, Dad, you're in finance, I want to go into finance as well, would you discourage them, or would you say no, it's still...
No, I would say yes, but choose wisely.
You're a bit nervous with your yes.
No, I would... In Sweden, you know, I actually had two sisters asking me this question at one of my seminars in Sweden. And because when I told my story that I left haram finance, and they were kind of shaken, and it's like, oh, I'm studying finance now. What should I do? Should I stop? Should I switch? And I was like, no, keep on doing it, because we're going to need you. Because... I mean, look at UK, look at, you know, there's Islamic finance institutions and products that are coming, and we're going to have those in Sweden soon enough. So we're going to need your expertise to handle this. But I would say maybe studied some Islamic finance as well along the way, just to get ready. But I would definitely, I mean, the advice would be not to look at the paycheck only.
Oh, well, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard.
When the cost
I've been
of living
there.
is
I've been
expensive.
there. It's very, very hard. But I know the barakah I got from leaving those kind of money. That was amazing. I got 2 kids. My wife couldn't become pregnant before I left. This is crazy. She became 3 months after I left my finance company. My wife became pregnant.
Do you associate those two things together?
I do. But even if you don't get it in this life, inshallah, you get it.
Because
in
sometimes
the
my
next
wife
life.
tells me, "Oh, this is a sign. This is a sign," and I said,
Yeah.
"Well, sometimes things just happen randomly. Not everything has to be a sign." But
Allahu alam. I'm a believer,
Yeah.
and someone told me, if you leave something for the sake of Allah,
Yeah.
you will get something better. If not in this life, in the next life.
Yeah.
You know. So Allahu alam. That is a promise.
Yeah.
So,
No,
but you shouldn't expect it in this life.
no, you shouldn't expect it.
No.
That's a big thing.
But-
You definitely shouldn't expect it.
So
Yeah, it's not easy though.
You know,
Because
No.
I understand the whole concept of, make sure you stay away from these things. Of course, it makes complete sense. But if you're on a very low paid salary, and you're providing for your family, and you have all of these difficult things, and then on top of that, now you're being told, okay, maybe let's say you've entered Islam. It's like, well, now you have to leave this job, and then maybe go to even worse paying job, and your circumstances are now even harder. It's really hard for the day-to-day person.
definitely.
And that's why, I think people are always asking, like, okay, what would you give your advice on? Like, should I enter finance? Should I not? And I'm like, that's really not for us to say.
No.
Like, that needs to come from the scholars.
Yeah.
It needs to come like that. There's a lot of thought that has to go into that, because ultimately, if it comes to the opinion that this is genuinely like a haram job and your source of income is haram, and like you said, like potentially you felt like it was stopping you from having kids.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah.
And that's not something like we could ever say like
No.
it's fine, just have the intention to leave. Like I don't want that on my head.
No.
I'm always just like, because people message us, young people, like, oh, I want to go into finance, and I'm like, don't ask.
Oh yeah, I'm not.
No, it's hard. It's
never
it's
say.
very hard. But my sheikh in Sweden said, when I when I had my first finance company, he said, well, maybe a way out is if you make niyyah that whatever your income is from halal sources. Yes. So he actually opened the door for me, but I felt. No, because we almost everything was haram what we did. So I felt no, I can't find that.
Yeah.
But maybe you could do it if you work in a bank. I don't know.
Yeah.
Allahu alam.
But sometimes like having that bigger picture view is really powerful. Like I think I don't obviously want to get too personal, but let's say Ahmed, for example.
We're getting personal now.
Is this okay? You mind?
No, I don't mind it. We
Okay,
can
fine.
cut it out even if
Okay.
it's bad. I'll just
But anyway,
cut it.
so Ahmed has a job in finance. Ahmed has a job in finance.
Yeah.
And you could argue potentially not permissible, the source of income coming in there.
Look at your job.
I'm not.
No, keep going. Sorry, keep going.
However, and he has maybe like 15 years of experience, okay?
Yeah.
Like really, really good knowledge. Now, we have like, alhamdulillah, like 40,000 people following us
Yeah.
as a result of that knowledge.
Yeah.
Like, how much benefit is that? And of that 40,000 people, how many have they shared it with their family? How many
Yeah,
people?
yeah,
We've had
definitely.
thousands of people, alhamdulillah, turn up to our events.
Yeah.
And that, like myself, I've only benefited from that knowledge because of Ahmed.
Yeah.
So it's so hard. So it's just like, if you do go into these corporates and you learn from them and your intention is to leave, maybe it is for the greater good, because you could then benefit a huge number of people that you would not have been able to do, because the Islamic finance space, unfortunately, is still very small. There's not big salaries. You're not going to attract the best talent, realistically.
I mean, there is that thing about in the Quran. Maybe it's off topic, but you know how like there are some things in the Quran which says just don't do it, like don't eat pork. But there are other things like drinking alcohol. It says don't go near it, because when you go near it, you're attracted to do it. It's not like eating pork. So you Like if it was my son and he's like, oh, I have an offer at Goldman Sachs on the IBD desk, and my graduate salary is 150K. I was like, okay. And he's like, my intention is to leave. I was like, okay, you can do it, but then you might actually get sucked into it, and then you might never leave. That might be the problem. But yeah, you're right. In my situation, maybe it worked out. We'll find out on the day of judgment if it worked.
Yeah, inshallah. Yeah, it's a really tough topic.
It is.
Because I
think you're right as well. Because I think if I hadn't been in finance, and what do you say, conventional or haram finance, I probably wouldn't be sitting here.
No.
You know, as you said, and also what I've gone through, I can let other people know.
Yeah.
You know, the struggles and, you know, my thoughts, you know, not feeling really great about my income, even though high numbers, of course. But is this the right money? So
Yeah.
But maybe it's an experience for every person to.
Wherever I look, all of the Islamic fintech products, genuinely speaking, they have been birthed out of people who have got knowledge from conventional backgrounds. And I wonder, like, would we have any solutions for Muslims if we didn't have that knowledge? Because the mashayikh obviously have their position in terms of learning the scholarly position, but you need people down on the ground, like boots on the ground.
Maybe you could argue that if we didn't have that knowledge, we would have innovated in our own way and we'd have a completely different system. But because we're all coming from a conventional system, we are just adapting the conventional system to the Islamic way. And I think that's a lot of people, a lot of Muslims, they have that complaint about Islamic finance, that it's not really Islamic, you're just copying the conventional system. My personal opinion is that it's a stepping stone in the right direction, but you never know.
You could argue, you know, that could have been the position over the last 1,000 years, but Islamic finance, this whole like new Islamic finance, is less than 100 years old. So why did that, you know, innovation never happen from just a scholarly position?
Why did Islamic
Because you're
finance
saying, okay, we only get these products now because people are coming from conventional backgrounds.
Yes.
And there's no new way of thinking because they've come from a way of doing it and they want to just do something similar. You could argue this whole copying has only happened in the last 50, 60, 70 years. Why did these Islamic finance products, like truly innovative ones, not happen for the previous 1,000 years?
I think to have an Islamic finance, to have something to invest in, you need functional capital markets. You need businesses that are working and thriving. You need things to do well. You need things to invest into. And in reality, the whole capital market system in a lot of the Arab world, Muslim world, never really developed because I think they were so far behind. If you look at all the older stock exchanges,
but there were scholars.
There were scholars. Maybe they could have developed something. I think the Muslims.
I feel really bad because now I'm saying I'm like having a go at the scholars, which I'm not.
No. I think the Muslims were somewhat advanced in finance. Maybe that's an area that we need to research on.
Yeah,
maybe
they were, because obviously they came out with the check and, you know, the first payment system, and you'd find the check going across the globe in terms of trade. So they were very advanced in terms of money and trade. But yeah, maybe it's the actual deep infrastructure systems we didn't create, which is now we have the issue of using the Western or the conventional systems and trying to fit into them, which is the problem.
But I think the conventional finance with riba, you know, made everything grow so much faster.
Yeah.
So I mean, the Islamic way, it was more stable.
Yes.
So this is, I mean, and money talks in this world, unfortunately. So that's why we are maybe into the conventional and we have to look back on the Islamic. Whereas in Malaysia, for example, the whole system is based on Islamic principles, right? So how do you go into the finance business there? You know, there are obviously students in Malaysia that become bankers, and so why not?
Yeah. So we've covered a lot.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about your journey, inshallah, which is I love it. That whole story. I heard it last night. I hear it today. And I'm sure even tomorrow.
You had a 5-minute version last night.
But it is actually, because I just think, like, you hear so many times of the story of how some people convert and it flips their switch. But yours is a really interesting one because it's such a long process.
Yeah.
And actually, I feel like that sometimes is a lot more relatable to people that are not even thinking the idea of religion. So I really do enjoy it. And I think what you guys are doing at Saturna is really, really exciting. And your journey as well, alhamdulillah. So I think we're very, very blessed and privileged to have met you.
Thank you.
Inshallah,
I'm
continue
blessed.
the relationship.
Alhamdulillah.
And if people want to learn more, obviously check out the Saturna website. And if you want to learn more genuinely about investing and education, check out nisba.co.uk. We have free events. But more importantly, subscribe.
Oh yeah, subscribe. See our other videos, and don't forget to check out the other Saturna video that we did,
the deep dive
with Muneem and the active fund management.
But yeah, barakallah feek. Thank you so much for your time.
Alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much.
Barakallah feekum.
Let's get some food.
Assalamu alaikum.